Welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk, the podcast covering all things soccer in the Queen City. So get in touch, soccer fans. Email us at feedback@cincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Now, here's your host, Nick Suberling.
Hey, what's happening, Cincinnati Soccer Talkers? Hope everybody has caught their breath after what was a stressful match on Saturday afternoon. Believe it or not, hey, guess what, FC Cincinnati fans? They tied Nashville again. What a shocker. They actually tied 3 times on Saturday, if you think about it. We're going to talk about that match. We're going to look ahead to, at least briefly, a little bit to the upcoming playoff game on Saturday against New York Red Bulls 2. We're going to do a quick little roundup of the USL Playoffs and kind of fill you in on what has happened both in the Eastern Conference and in the Western Conference. And, of course, it is a free-for-all. So we want to hear from you, FC Cincinnati fans. Get in touch with us on the King's Hammer hotline at 513-399-KICK, 513-399-KICK. And we want to hear what your best and worst from Saturday was. Hey, we've got an episode captain this week. Let's get up to Stephen Haldeman. Stephen, thank you so much for supporting us here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk, for wearing the armband for this episode of CST. For more information on how you can be an episode captain of Cincinnati Soccer Talk, log on to cincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. All right, let's welcome in my tag team partners for this week, my cast of characters. I'll start with Boston, Razzle Dazzle Brazzle himself. Boston, how are you, buddy? I can't hear you. Are you muted? Did you mute yourself?
He is muted.
Let's try this again.
Oh, wow. We're off to a flyer.
Well, despite muting myself, I'm still doing better than Tucker Hume's doing today. And I don't know, it's been a great couple days, right? Celebrating our first ever playoff victory, advancing to the next round, whether you want to call it a draw, a win. I don't know. I'm still celebrating.
Yeah, technically it was a draw for FC Cincinnati. Although, I mean, yes, they drew, but they advanced on penalties. And you're right. Well, you should be feeling better than Tucker Hume. He didn't do much Saturday, thankfully, considering he had scored the last 2 times that FC Cincinnati had played. So,
when drawing and advancing is a lot better than drawing and not advancing, right?
That is a valid point, Boston, and I cannot argue with that. Glad to have you back, though. Looking forward to getting your thoughts on the match as well as the rest of the USL. Let's also welcome back to the show the Wolfman, Bill Wolf. Bill, how are you?
I'm good. I have to say, I like the Wolf How. I definitely miss it when I do live shows and it's not there. But having the whole audience at Top Cats howl for me, that was special.
That was a lot of fun. We had a great time at Top Cats. Thank you to everybody who came out. Thank you to two Top Cats for letting us host the show there. Thank you to the Pride as well for letting us crash their pregame party. That was a lot of fun. And you're right, hearing the Wolf Howl in person, you're right. It's pretty spectacular, Bill.
Yeah, and thanks to Kevin and Jeff for coming by as well. So I know
100%.
They had a lot to do. So
yes, you took the words right out of my mouth. They were extremely busy on Saturday, but they made time for us, and we cannot be more thankful. So as we wait for more callers to hop into our call queue tonight, we want to hear from you. What are your best and worst from Saturday? So I'll start with you, Bill. Give me your best and worst.
Well, I know we really, ever since Chicago have enjoyed celebrating, when the keeper saves the ball or the kicker misses the ball, but it's kind of like a little goofy when we celebrate kind of prematurely. So, when we didn't actually win the game and we kind of went out with a full celebration on that ball over the top, that was a little goofy. I think the guys were obviously excited. Good for them, but anyway. But best, of course, was that Walker came through at the end. I have to say, when I saw that he was the 6th kicker and it was all on him, I actually felt pretty good about it. The guy is, he's taken PKs in the past. He's a heck of a kicker. If you ever go to training, he has this tendency to kick balls into trash cans from distance. So he definitely knows what he's doing. I felt a little bit of calm having seen him there, and he came through. So great for him. So great for us.
Yeah, I agree with you there. How about you, Boston?
Well, man, I got a lot of bests. Are we doing worst first or best first here?
Whichever you want.
Best, man, you got a lot to choose from. The Tifo, absolutely amazing. Whoever brought the Tucker Hume cardboard cutout and then all the terrible things that were done to it during and after the game, it like slowly progressed. We saw him being like punched in the Bailey. We saw him being thrown in the trash can and then finally burned alive at Mecklenburg Gardens. Bravo to everyone that tortured poor cardboard cutout Tucker Hume. And but I think my true best goes to Spencer Richie, erasing all doubt that the Golden Glove winner was not in the game. There would have been some flack, I think, if those penalties had gone a different way and Evan Newton was not in there. So bravo to Richie for holding his own and making some great saves in that game that really kept us in there. I think the worst, in my opinion, is 20,000 for a playoff game. Come on, Cincinnati. Where were you guys? I don't know if it's a 4 o'clock start time or some other random, lots of things been thrown out there, but kind of bummed. Show up, boys.
Yeah, tough time. 4 p.m. on a Saturday. It's going to be the same thing this upcoming weekend against the Red Bulls. So, yeah, that is going to be a tough one, Boston. I did. My mom and dad were telling me over the weekend that there was there's a mom and daughter season ticket holder that sit in front of them, their Nipper, that showed up in the 87th minute because they were confident it was going to go into penalty kicks. And the reason why they showed up in the 87th minute is because she had a soccer game. So a lot of families probably in that dilemma. Bill was at a soccer tournament last weekend. I'm going to be at a soccer tournament this weekend. Tough time to schedule in the fall, Bill.
Absolutely. It was a long weekend for me. I started at 7 in the morning each day. It was obviously like, a 6 a.m. kind of wake up, shower, and get out to the fields kind of thing. And then all day long Sunday and well, not all day long, but till evening and same thing in the morning Saturday. So yeah, for people who were out there with their kids, that was a tough one. And obviously the club will think about that again next year, I'm sure.
I don't have kids, so I don't understand this whole, to me, it's like a playoff game. It's the biggest deal in the whole entire world. My brain is like, I don't care if I have kids. I would just skip their tournaments. And
that's why you don't have kids.
Is that possible? No. So this is my question, because I really don't understand. Yeah. Is it possible to just miss these things, or do you have too much money and time invested or something?
You can certainly miss it, but when you're a parent, it really does come about children at some point, and you learn to sacrifice, and that's one of those things you sacrifice. So I've missed my kid's game. I mean, when he was his senior year in high school, I tried to go to every game, but there was one that I missed, and it was the home opener against Louisville. But of course at that point he's 18 years old, and he's been doing this for a while, and there was
he could drive himself to the game.
He could drive himself to the game. That's the other thing, obviously. But, you can get split parents where one can go to the game and one can take the kid to the tournament. I mean, that's all possible, but it's a parent thing. And someday, maybe Boston, you'll make that choice, and that little Grinch heart will grow 3 sizes bigger or something. I don't know.
Yeah, don't bet on it.
So if were you asking, Boston, if the kids should skip, or are you saying the parents should skip?
I don't know, whatever gets people there.
So here's what I'll tell you. Club soccer is expensive. He's going to every single thing that they offer. There's no way that he's skipping anything, if you ask me. That's just my take, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents and families who feel the same exact way. My best and worst. My best, obviously, was just the fact that I was back in Cincinnati. God, I miss that town. Second best was the post-match skyline. Ran into a couple of FC Cincinnati fans there who said hello, stopped me to say hi. Worst was the fact that we let it get to penalties against Nashville again. Worst was being in the car for 6 hours. At least the match was a little bit longer than 90 minutes, so it felt worth it. But yeah, the worst was probably the fact that they got up in the first extra time, and then it was like I don't even know what happened, but all of a sudden Nashville kicked in and our midfield just seemed to struggle. They couldn't get a grasp on the game, and you just had a sense when he was lining up for that last corner kick that something bad was going to happen. That impending doom, you felt it, and sure enough, Bourgeois flukily gets it past Spencer. So we want to hear from you, though. Some of your best and worst. We'll be monitoring Facebook and YouTube and Twitter for all of your best and worst, so make sure you send those in. Let's head over, though, to the Kings Hammer hotline. I'm going to welcome in our first caller for the free-for-all, and let's welcome in Jay to Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Hi, Jay. How are you?
Pretty good, Suze. How about yourself, sir?
I'm doing well. It was a pleasure meeting you at Top Cats this weekend.
Oh, likewise. You and the rest of the crew at Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, man. What's on your mind tonight?
You talk about best and worst. You actually stole my worst, believe it or not.
Okay.
Just when you thought that we kind of just got ahead, we finally beat the Nashville curse that we've been going on all season long. For that fluke goal to go in, it just kind of seems deflating. But I would say, just kind of piggybacking off that, the best is seeing that one, the original three actually managed to contribute to the first goal that put us ahead. And then just poetic justice, having one of the original three, Kenny, just put in the back of the net, send us off the second round of playoffs, and it was just a beautiful thing to see. And now that I think about that, can we just mention the fact that the fans actually came from the general admission section, walked all the way down, and actually got behind goal? It was just beautiful to watch.
That was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I wish more people would have actually gathered around there. It was nice to see them all packed down around the goal, but man, people from the family section should have come over. Nobody would have cared. Just get behind the goal, make some noise.
It was cool to see from the Bailey, though. The rush of people coming down from the top part of the bowl. That was pretty cool. So Jay, you concerned about Red Bulls 2 coming into this weekend?
I mean, if I do a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to say 6. It's a team that we can beat. We've obviously beaten them twice this year, both 2-1. But we've had some struggles, especially early on, when they go up 1 and then we have to fight away and claw our way back into a game. But if I had to take anything from, obviously, beating the streak and then obviously just performances that we've had over since Saturday, I really feel like we're going to put on a strong performance. I think this is one that, where we say a 2-1 victory could go our way. This is one I feel that's going to be much more solid.
All right.
In terms of being able to say that and confirm that.
Well, good stuff, Jay. By the way, keep putting out some awesome vlogs, man. You're doing it. Tell folks out there how they can find your vlogs, because you do tremendous work.
Just look for any YouTube videos that has FC Cincinnati, and definitely have a particular playlist. What I'm going to do at some point is link my actual YouTube page to you guys at Cincinnati Soccer Talk on Twitter. And if you guys want to share it out, that'd be great. But always be able to check the vlogs out, and you'll be able to see exactly whenever I post them.
All right, buddy. Hey, appreciate the call again. It was a pleasure meeting you this weekend. Look forward to seeing you some more at FC Cincinnati matches going forward.
Likewise. You guys enjoy your night.
That's Jay kicking us off here on the Kings Hammer hotline. Again, we've got phone lines open, 513-399-KICK, 513-399-KICK. We've got Trisha standing by ready to take your calls. Obviously, we know that this was, and I kind of tweeted about it on Sunday morning after I had a chance to reflect on what happened. FC Cincinnati tied Nashville in the preseason, 2-2. They tied in the first appearance there at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, 0-0. Then they came to Nippert Stadium. They tied 1-1. 3-3 last week down at First Tennessee Park. After 90 minutes, it was tied 0-0 on Saturday. After extra time, it was tied 1-1. And then after 5 penalty kicks, it was still tied. It came down to 1 missed penalty this year. That's how close these two teams were, Bill. And we talked about it at Top Cats with Kevin McCloskey, Brian Weigel, very confident heading into that match. He thought, FC Cincinnati was the better team. So what is it about these two teams that it came down to 1 missed penalty kick this year?
Well, I think Brian got it wrong. He was out there throwing some, I don't know, whatever. at the Nashville guys, but it was just saying that they weren't a good team, and that Pickens wasn't a good goalkeeper, and he was washed up, and they didn't know how to score, and I think that was incorrect. I think honestly, the problem Nashville had this year was that they just had some inconsistencies. Right? It wasn't that the team itself was bad. I think on paper they had some issues, or they looked good, but they had some issues getting it consistent, and they had some down games that cost them a good position. But in my opinion, they were a top 4 team. They showed that every time they played us, and they got up. And when they played big teams and the team got excited, they showed what they could do. We sometimes, get accused of having the opposite problem, that we beat the teams we're supposed to beat, and then when we play the big teams, we struggle. And that would almost be the opposite for Nashville, that they always rose to the occasion for these big teams, and they certainly have always rose to the occasion for us. I think the other thing is, it's just their mindset is very defensive. They started from the back with Pickens. I think Doyle has been an absolute anchor for them back there, and he was a beast on Saturday. And we just struggle against teams like that. We did okay against Pittsburgh, but they're the same thing. We've never really done just wash Pittsburgh out or anything, because they're a very strong defensive team. So
we got some more best and worst here. This is from YouTube. Andy Rosen says, how apropos that one of the original 3 got the winner. Yep, Kenny Walker with the decisive penalty kick there in the 6th round. This is from Facebook, and I got a chuckle out of this on social media on Sunday, and even late on Saturday night. Chris Marshall, his best was making Cyclones fans grumpy. And the worst was below average attendance, and Mama Subs chiming in, Koenig jersey in attendance, and her worst is the wind. So, yeah, it was pretty windy. Even more crazy, after the match, Jeremy Miller and I shot the video recap there from the stands there at Nippert Stadium, and there was so much garbage just whirling around. I felt bad for the folks the next day. It was just whipping. It was crazy. So yeah, Boston, I know you're a big fan of Nashville. What is it about these two teams that it's close every single time?
And I'm not sure. Bill said one thing that is true. They do play well against top 4 teams. I mean, their record is clear. They beat Louisville this year. They drew us every single game. They beat Pittsburgh, I believe. I think they beat Charles. Yes, I mean, they beat everybody in the top 4 but us, if memory serves me correctly. Or at least drew them. It's a tough out, and I don't know why, because I really thought going into this game, we've got them. We've got them. We'll win in regulation. Deep down, FC Cincinnati's better, and we've got the better squad. We went out there, we put together just this all-star team. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's just the defense that we struggle breaking down. If we play them again, I don't know. I don't know if we can do anything but time, to be honest with you. Yeah. And going into this match, I really was like, yes, we're definitely the better team. There is no doubt we're going to win in regulation. And Liam on Facebook said, when we scored, he didn't feel comfortable at all. He knew that they would come back and land another one, which I think all of us had that thought during the game. But at least okay, well the worst they can do is tie. They're not going to score 2 in a couple minutes, especially the way we were playing pretty decent defense. And Richie, of course, had some great saves. Nail-biter all the way down. And I guess, some of us were a little too confident in our pregame show. Pregame Brian Bill, by the way, is very different than normal Brian. So,
well, and to be fair too, Boston, I predicted 4-0.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close.
Yeah. And I think some of us were a little confident, and Nashville brought us back down to earth. And going into these next few playoff games, maybe we should just, tread a little more carefully.
Yeah. We got some more bests and worsts. This is from Scott Wilson. He says he's not concerned at all about the Baby Bulls. I guess that's not really a best and worst. But speaking of Jeremy Miller, I just mentioned him a minute ago. He says his best, we won a playoff game in Cincinnati. He says, #Bengals you next. I don't know about that one, Jeremy.
Confident.
Yeah, he's confident, but we're going to pump the brakes a little bit on that. We do have phone lines open on the King's Hammer hotline. Get in touch with us, 513-399-KICK. Speaking of the Red Bulls, let's welcome in Gus to the show. Gus, welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk. How are you?
Good. How are you guys tonight?
We're doing well. What's on your mind?
All right. So on my mind is we didn't look well on defense last match against Nashville, and Tucker Hume isn't the best attacker, and I feel that Jared Stroud of Baby Bulls and Tom Barlow of Baby Bulls are younger and faster, and I feel like they can press more and really put what do you call it? A lot of pressure on our defense, and I want your thoughts on how that goes.
Yeah, that's true. One thing that we are going to see is, look, the Red Bulls can score goals. The one thing they also do, though, is they also give up a lot. So that's, I think, going to be FC Cincinnati's saving grace. I don't think you're going to see a 0-0. If anything, you might see a 3-3, 4-3 in this matchup between these two defenses. Yeah, I mean, Red Bulls, Boston, they're no slouch. I mean, they went to Charleston and beat a really good Battery side.
You know, it's kind of ironic because we're playing almost the exact opposite of the team we played. Nashville is, I think they have one of the worst, if not the worst, conversion rating, maybe outside of Richmond, in the USL. And at one point, it was the league's lowest conversion rating, and they just have a great defense. We're flipping that to towards the end of the year, New York was leading the league in goals despite being around the 7th or 8th spot, and they have just a god-awful defense. I mean, they concede like nobody's business.
Yeah, their best defense is a good offense. I mean, they're going to press as hard as they can because, they got nothing in the back. It's for us to weather the storm, and that's how we beat them in the past. Though ironically, it'll be interesting. Defenders scored 2 of our goals in one of the games, so it's been a while since we've seen a header goal in. But again, they don't defend. They don't defend well in set pieces either. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Bill. The last time these two teams faced off back at Nippert Stadium earlier this summer, it came off of 2 corner kicks where FC Cincinnati just crowded the 6-yard box, and Ledesma just put it on a plate. So I'd like to see them score from open play. The only goal, I guess they had 2 goals from the run of play there at New York when they were down all the way back when this stretch of unbeaten matches started. So one thing I'll say this, Gus. It's going to be a completely different match than what we saw over the weekend, like Boston said. This is going to be fun. It should be an up-and-down kind of match like you're watching a basketball game, hopefully with a lot of attacking and a lot of excitement.
All right.
All right. Hey, Gus, appreciate the call, man.
That's all taking. All right, thank you.
That's Gus here on the Kings Hammer Hotline. And let's see. Should we go? Let's go one more. We mentioned the Cyclones a little bit. Let's welcome in Alex to the show. Is this Yarsky?
What's up, man?
How did I know it was you talking about the Cyclones?
Yeah, it's all about. Yeah, of course it's me talking about the Cyclones. What do you expect?
I'm. By the way, it was great hanging out with you for a very brief moment on Saturday there at Top Cats.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to kind of speak about, because I have the kind of the unique experience of being a season ticket holder for both the Cyclones and FC Cincinnati. I know better than a lot of people that the experience are different, but that doesn't necessarily mean that one side needs to pick fights with the other. I think it's something that having 2 sports like that, even though they're technically both minor league right now, they do not need to be picking fights at each other. It seems silly that this city should not be rounding together, and they should be going together. It's a unique thing that we're able to have both hockey and FC Cincinnati. And while, we all know that FC Cincinnati caught lightning in a bottle, I don't think the correct way for the Cyclones to go about it is to pick a fight with FC Cincinnati. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in there, but and I'll let you guys speak upon that. But that's kind of my 2 cents.
This is going to be an interesting one. Because, and honestly, I don't know why this is, and I don't even know if there's this particular person, if he's still involved with the Cyclones, but he made it very known back when FC Cincinnati was trying to get into Major League Soccer that he felt like soccer wasn't going to survive in Cincinnati. He made it very known that his sources were that Cincinnati wasn't going to be in Major League Soccer. And so my take is, look, I saw that from somebody who has worked in Cincinnati media, and see how he is affiliated with the Cyclones. That was disappointing to me. You see today, FC Cincinnati tweeting out, welcome to the Reds manager. I mean, that to me is how you approach it. So, yes, the Cyclones, we know you won the cup a few years ago, but I don't think you need to remind everybody. I didn't forget. You didn't forget Yerski.
Absolutely not.
So, I don't know. Maybe that's something they maybe kind of wish they hadn't tweeted out.
Yeah, I think it just would have been smart to, and you saw exactly that tweet that you were mentioning before. I think that this city and they should rally towards each other and hope that, that the Cyclones can eventually catch lightning in a bottle, sort of similar to FC Cincinnati. And it's completely different. But it's a unique atmosphere that I'm glad this city has. And I don't want to see the Cyclones go away. Obviously don't want to see FC Cincinnati go away. But if we can rally together instead of combating each other, I think it's going to do nothing but good. But what was shown before is harmful, in my opinion.
Good stuff, Yerski. I'm glad you brought that up, man.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Have a great night, guys.
You too. That's Yerski giving us a ring here on the Kings Hammer hotline. 513-399-KICK is the number to call in, 513-399-KICK. Just looking at some of these other stats. From a possession standpoint, FC Cincinnati outpossessed Nashville 60-40. They actually outshot Nashville 22-16. However, Nashville had more shots on target, 6-5 there. Let's talk about the midfield, shall we, guys? Fatai Alashe got the start. Kind of got an early hook for the match, considering how long the match went. What did you make of his performance? I will say this, being in the Bailey and talking amongst FC Cincinnati fans, a lot of folks didn't even realize he was on the pitch. That's not necessarily a good thing. And maybe, I don't know, Bill, what did you make of his performance?
Yeah, I've heard some people complaining and talking about, he didn't do a good job or whatever. I would disagree at some level. I felt like he actually did a pretty nice job earlier in the game. I think it was more in the second half that he took a significant dip. In the first half, he got involved in some of the plays and such, but it just seemed like he dropped off really quick. And I don't know if it was fatigue or something else. I don't know what happened there, but he was one of the first subs that Allen made, and I think it was the right move. I think it made sense to get him off the bench or get him on the bench and bring somebody else out there to try to make more of an impact, because he had some decent play, stopped some, broke up some balls in the midfield and such, but then it just seemed like he kind of dipped out for me. Yeah. Like you said, people were like, "Oh, I didn't really notice he was there." I think in the second half that's somewhat true. He got pretty quiet on the pitch.
I mean, what more do you want from a midfielder that, I feel like his main job is to transition that ball from the back to the front, and we did pretty well. As far as possession, I think 20% over them.
Yep.
Hundreds, if not 200 more passes. I mean, isn't that the man doing his job? We control possession. To me, I lay the blame a little bit more in the attacking side of the field than the guy in the guy that's supposed to transition the ball is doing just a fine job of doing that.
Yeah, I don't know that I think he was doing a bad job, and I don't know that necessarily holding mids are the most exciting players on the pitch that you're gonna, see them doing these phenomenal things. I think for me, where I kind of start to think about things is that, your defense is your back line. Obviously, they're there to prevent balls from going into the net. The holding mids are the line in front of them. So at some point when you're starting to collapse in on your goal and protect it, I kind of look at the defenders as kind of protecting the 6, and I kind of look at the holding mids as protecting the 18 at some level. And I feel like, we got some shots off late in the game from out in the 18. I would have liked to seen, that not happen, but Fatai Lashe wasn't on the pitch at that point.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and there were some other players as well that got subbed in a little bit later on, which I'm sure we'll talk about. One thing I will say this, since Tyler Gibson has returned, I feel like he's played really well for FC Cincinnati. And he was a guy, clearly, last offseason when they brought him in, they had big, high hopes for this guy. And unfortunately, to get the broken leg there in preseason, very fortunate that he is healed up and playing for FC Cincinnati now. So we want to hear from you, though. 513-399-KICK. What did you make of the midfield? What did you make of some of the performances from the guys over the weekend? Let's go back to the Kings Hammer Hotline. Let's welcome in Matt to the show. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Hey, long-time caller, first-time listener.
Fantastic.
It was a pleasure meeting you at Top Cats in March over the weekend. I think this upcoming match is going to be, like you were saying, night and day. I am chomping at the bit, actually.
Yeah.
I think the Nashville team is a much taller team. You look at 3 and 30, I can't remember all the names, and Hume, of course. They all were, very big. Not exactly fast, but they seem to be faster. I thought last weekend's game, Ledesma did not have a Ledesma game. He was struggling double team. Addy had it on his left foot, wanted to move it to his right foot. The windows were really tight, and I thought the attacks in third were not so good. I thought the holding midfield were fine. I thought they transitioned the ball quite a bit. It was slower play on the attacking third. I think the exact opposite, as everybody's been kind of saying. They have a poor back four. I noticed when both of the games, particularly the game at Nippert, we scored twice early and then gave up a late score, which was kind of disappointing. But I remember correctly, it was like in the 75th or 80th minute, to put a little bit of fear into that. But for the most part, we controlled most of that game. I think it's going to be the same. Now we have a whole host of players that the Red Bulls haven't seen. We have Hattie and Lash and Gibson. I think there's going to be a lot of speed on there. I think there's going to be a lot of holes. And I think particularly our offensive players are also chomping at the bit to give Addy one-on-one, because they're not going to be able to double-team him. I think there's going to be a lot of goals being scored. It's just a matter of who's going to play in the back four and how much we can stop their offensive power.
You got a prediction for us, Matt?
I'm going to go with 4-1 FC Cincinnati.
I like it. I like the bold prediction there. That's a good scoreline. I would love that after what we saw over the weekend, having to bite down on all our nails. Man.
It was crazy.
Yes, it was. Matt, appreciate the call as always. Said pleasure meeting you as well over the weekend.
Thank you.
That's Matt on the Kings Hammer Hotline. And Ken, we've got phone lines open. Trisha's waiting to take your call. 513-399-KICK, 513-399-KICK. Kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, talking about Richie Ryan when he got subbed into the match there in extra time. Not sure if Gibson had just been absolutely worn out, but he came on the field, and it felt like at that point Nashville kind of kicked into a second gear, Boston. And at that point, they hadn't scored yet, but they were knocking on the doorstep a few times.
Yeah, Nashville's a weird team when it comes to scoring, because you don't really know if they're going to make the most of their chances, and they did in the last match we played them in the 3-3 game. They actually had a great finishing ratio compared to their shots, and in this match it went back down, which I think I expected, to more of their seasonal average. And we have to give credit to Spencer Ritchie, because there were there's a point-blank shot that hit his chest, and there was one that he had to push over the bar that, really could have been difference makers in this game, and he played well. The shot that they did make, if you watch it, though, did you guys think it was deflected? Because I really felt like it was.
Oh, it took a huge deflection.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's hard to say Spencer should have had that. I mean, I don't. It's kind of a lucky ball. It goes into that perfect top corner spot. What are you going to do?
Oh, it was definitely a fluky goal. There's no question about it. I mean, that was the flukiest of fluky. I mean, the guy just hit it, and it was hopeful, and it just took one of those funky deflections where it gave it some top spin and it found the corner. I agree with you, though, 100%. I mean, Richie was probably the man of the match for FC Cincinnati. A couple close-range shots, a couple that he had to tip over the bar. Yeah, I'm with you. But at the same time, it's just like, Bill, when, we talk about midfield depth, when we talk about depth on this team, right? And I know Michael Lahoud wasn't in the 18. Not sure why, but he wasn't in the 18. We saw Richie Ryan play last week for FC Cincinnati. We gave up 2 late goals to have another draw versus. And again, I'm not saying that this is 100% on Richie Ryan, but it feels like when he's been on the pitch the last couple weeks, and I know he's just getting back into fitness. I know he's just getting back after a long layoff. It felt like Nashville immediately attacked that spot.
Yeah, I mean, you started to see the chances from the 18 become, more dangerous, and obviously this one got in. I think you're right. I don't think you can just sit there and say, Richie Ryan was on the pitch both times, so those 3 goals are on him. It doesn't quite work like that,
right? But
it is fair to say that he hasn't got the rhythm with the rest of the team. It took this team. It was like 10 games into the season before I would say everybody really felt that they had gelled and they were clicking. We got Richie Ryan. We didn't get Richie Ryan got hurt. He was injured and sitting, off to the side quite a lot. The little bit of training that I managed to catch, not the most recent training, but what I caught, he wasn't even doing warm-ups at points. At the very end, he started to do like a walk around the pitch. So, I mean, it took him a while to even get back into doing anything with the team. That chemistry is important. You bring in players like Fatai Alashe, Fernando Adi. You change the chemistry and he doesn't know it. So to me, I think it's that level of understanding of who's going to move where and when. And, I think that's where you mess up is when you have that guy step in there who maybe assumes one thing but should have assumed something different just because he hasn't been out there for a while, and it doesn't take much of a mistake for a goal to go in. So
yeah, as we saw on Saturday, there's no question. I mean, one simple mistake, one simple deflection, and that meant penalties for FC Cincinnati and Nashville. I want to get to a little bit about what the matchup for New York Red Bulls and FC Cincinnati means going forward here coming up on Saturday. A lot of questions about roster rules and how that all goes into effect. We'll also talk a little bit, too, about some of the other USL playoff matchups around the grounds over the weekend. But before we can do all that, it's that time of the show where we give a shout-out and thanks to our tremendous supporters. So let's give it up to King's Hammer and Tim Bronsel, and Matt Adamczyk, Mama Subes, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Mike Hudson, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, who had the pleasure of meeting in the Bailey this weekend, Kathleen Francis, Jesse King, Teresa Everidge, Matt Imholt, Sagan Sagai, and Matthew Long. Thank you so much for your support of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. To learn more about how you can support this show, head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. For those of you who watched the live stream of our show there at Top Cats, you probably noticed we were sporting some fancy new headsets. Your support, your generosity helps us buy equipment like that so that we can do live shows and sound better and be able to function better at live shows, and to pay for streaming services like we've got tonight so that we can be on Facebook and YouTube and Periscope and Twitch and all of this. A little bit does go a long way. The Growler Cup is over, but that doesn't mean you can't be in it for next year. You can get signed up right now. Head over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. Find out how you can get involved here with CST. We've got some big plans this offseason as far as getting you more involved and keeping you abreast of what's happening with Cincinnati Soccer Talk. And again, we thank everybody for your generosity and your support of CST. All right, so Boston, this question came in on YouTube. from Thomas Myers. He says, do the Baby Bowls still get to bring down first-team players, or is there a set roster now that the playoffs have started? So fill us in, Boston. You're Mr. USL know-it-all.
So the roster lock was, I think, the second week of September. It's definitely been around a month since we've seen that sealed off. And then USL's got a lot of rules that involve MLS players. Essentially, an MLS player can kind of leave the MLS roster and come back to an MLS roster and still be allowed. But there is another rule that says you cannot be on two rosters at one time, and it gets a little tricky. But basically, the New York Red Bulls only have nine or 10 players signed. The rest of their players are MLS signed players that usually play on the two team, and they are the same ones that are pretty much locked. Brian's got some great info on that I think he's going to be putting out on his March to Match Day podcast. I think there's one kind of a big time player coming back from suspension that will be eligible for New York Red Bulls too, and then they've got one or two possible big hitters, but for the most part, I think you'll see the same guys that were playing against Charleston.
Yeah, so make sure you check that out. March to Match Day coming up a little bit later on this week. Brian does, again, tremendous work covering the FC Cincinnati opponent. This one obviously being Red Bulls 2. I think actually Brian is actually recording that tonight. So make sure you get subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss that episode. Let's take a look a little bit around the USL grounds, shall we, Boston? First of all, let's congratulate the United Soccer League. I know this is our last go-round for them, but they had a record number of attendance for the first round of the USL Playoffs this weekend. 59,492 came out to watch USL soccer playoff matches. That's an average of over almost 7,500 fans per game. A couple of teams set records. Phoenix Rising, Pittsburgh Riverhounds, obviously that was Pittsburgh's first playoff match, I believe, at Highmark, so they didn't really have a record to set, but it was a record setting for them. So that's pretty cool. The fact that the league set an attendance record for the USL playoffs, and that these fans are hyped about these clubs. Now, the weekend started off pretty great, especially if you're a Phoenix fan. Friday night, Didier Drogba, that of Chelsea fame, blasts a free kick from about 40 yards out. Just an absolute knuckler. Probably the keeper should have done better for Timbers 2. But that match finishes 3-0 over Timbers 2. Anything you could take away from that match, Boston?
Just that Didier Drogba can still kick a free kick. Man, holy cow. That was a bullet. And for 40 years old, props to the old guy.
Yeah, not only that, he was pretty ticked off when they subbed him out.
Yeah,
when they called his number, he had this look of, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, he is one guy that can actually fire his coach. So
that's a good point, Boston. Another big match over the weekend: Real Monarchs 0, Reno 1. That is a 4-5 matchup. Brian Brown with the goal for Reno in the second minute of stoppage time knocks off the Monarchs. The Monarchs, Boston, were a team a lot of people thought were going to win the Shield, and they just hit a wall sometime this summer and just could not stop the slide. They're out in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I predicted this one several days in advance because of their slide. Their slide has been abysmal for about a month, and I don't know, they just fell off completely from their form all year. I mean, at one point they were leading the entire USL, even FC Cincinnati, and just tanked the last half of the year. And I talked to one of the only Real Monarchs fans that I know, and he had a couple explanations for it, but really he had a hard time justifying how they went from that good to this bad. And so if you saw the pretty decent trend, you kind of saw this one coming.
Yeah, they were definitely on the downward slide as far as the form table goes throughout the summer. Started off really hot, and then whatever happened, they just could not stop the what do they say? Stop the rot there over across the pond. So they're out, and that means Reno continues on. Speaking of continuing on, the Red Bulls knock off the Charleston Battery. That's another 4-5 matchup. So both 4 seeds in the East and the West have been eliminated. Red Bulls obviously getting the goal from Tom Barlow in the 21st minute. And that's a big matchup because obviously that meant Red Bulls coming to town on Saturday, Boston.
Yeah, and all the crap we just gave the Red Bulls about not being able to defend, they did hold off Charleston Battery, who kind of brought a mini onslaught to try to get back an equalizer in that game. And Red Bulls held strong. I don't think they can do that as well versus an FC Cincinnati offense, but they did well.
Speaking of one of the scariest teams in the USL right now, Louisville City continues to be on a tear. They win 4-1 over Indy 11. Niall McCabe with a brace for Louisville.
Louisville's being Louisville again in typical playoff fashion and form. They are a very scary team and by far the worst team FC Cincinnati can face.
Another match that ended in penalty kicks. Pittsburgh Riverhounds, a 3-6 matchup with Bethlehem Steel. That goes to penalty kicks. 8-7 is the result there in the penalty kicks. Bethlehem Steel knocking off the Riverhounds. A Riverhound side that we thought, with Lily Ball coming to town, we thought that this was going to be a team that had the potential of making a deep run in the playoffs because they were so good defensively. In the end, you let it get to penalty kicks at home, and the Steel convert.
If you only have time to watch one game from this playoff week that's not FC Cincinnati, I would recommend you go watch at least after this game is 1-1 and Pittsburgh scores. There's a little bit of a tiff between their captain and the Steel's captain, James Chambers. And man, Chambers rode this wave of I guess being the villain, the big villain in Pittsburgh. He had their fans all riled up, and then he ends up they go down, and Steele has to come back and equalize. He gets fouled outside of the box, tries to claim it's a PK, but it's a free kick directly outside the box. Scores from that spot, taunts the fans. Then it goes to PKs. He decides he's going to take the first one as the captain, steps up, buries it, stares at the crowd for, man, it just seemed like an awkward amount of time, which it was really only a couple seconds, and then takes his finger to his lips and shushes the crowd. I mean, at that point, I thought Pittsburgh fans were going to jump over the wall and just tackle him. They were so mad. It was like Guido mad. They were so mad at him. And man, if you get a chance, check it out. It's a good game, high drama, high stakes, and that was a fun one to watch.
That was a confusing one to watch, though, for a neutral because, they're talking about I knew the game was at Highmark, obviously, but they were taking penalty kicks in front of the Steel Army. Now, it's Bethlehem Steel FC. So I was like, why, what is happening? And then the Steel FC player was taunting the Steel Army. I was even more confused because I was like, why is he taunting his own fans if it's the Steel Army? Then I realized, oh, yeah, Steel City. I get it now. Took me a minute, but I got there, Boston. Speaking of minutes, actually, I don't even know where I was going on that one. Over the weekend, Orange County, the number 1 seed in the West, taking care of business against St. Louis FC. That was a 4-2 final. Michael Seaton with a hat trick for the Blues.
Ooh, talk about controversy. This one's been all over the USL web pages today. Seaton actually was involved in a little bit of an incident with the St. Louis player who apparently said something to him that caused the official to immediately pull out a red card and send St. Louis. I think it was
Fallwall.
No, not him. A different guy with a very similar name, but sent him off, and they had to play down man pretty much mostly the entire game because I think he got sent off in the 20th-ish, 24th, somewhere in there. So then the player that was involved in that incident goes on and lands a hat trick. So, I mean, props to Orange County. I think they were favored anyway, but St. Louis didn't stand a chance down a man for the whole game.
Orange County, another one of those teams in fine form and very dangerous out in the Western Conference, so keep an eye on that. And that was probably the biggest upset of the weekend, and hat tip to Mr. Razzle Dazzle Brazzle himself. He called this the 2 seed, Sacramento Republic, goes down to Swope Park Rangers, the defending Western Conference champions, 2-1. Sacramento goes up early in this match, but 2 goals within 4 minutes of each other there in the first half. Means the Swope walks out of Sacramento with the win, and the Republic are out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I admit when I called this one, I said it was my least likely to come true, but I felt just based off of this magic that Swope somehow magically gets every year. And they're never the best team. I mean, they haven't been the best team when they've been the Western conference finalist, 2016, 2017. But here they go again, 2018, knocking off a 2-seed Sacramento, the same team they've beaten before to knock out of the playoffs. And we'll see if they can continue this magical run to give the East a championship again.
So those are the roundup of some of the USL scores and what went down on the grounds. I know, Bill, you didn't get a chance because you were busy over the weekend. But is there any of those results that kind of shocked you when you had a chance to sit down and take a look?
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh shocked me. Again, a defensive team, so I guess not super surprising to end up in PKs, but the fact that it was a 2-2 game, it was surprising to end up in PKs. But I think for me overall, if you just look at the whole picture and the fact that out of 8 games, 4 of them were, in effect, whatever, surprises or shockers or whatever. I mean, the 5 seed winning against the 4 seed in both games, that's not that big a deal, but really to lose a 2 seed and a 3 seed, all the same weekend or whatever. Yeah, that was a bit surprising to me. So, but, hey, that's playoff soccer.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed too, and just seeing some of the highlights and watching some of the matches over the weekend, these final 8 teams are the cream of the crop in the USL. So it's only going to get tougher for teams like FC Cincinnati. And if you can walk out with the championship, I think it's certainly well deserved. We want to hear from you, though. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
I think it gets tougher in the sense that these are good teams, but to be 100% honest, the one team I did not want to face was Nashville. So I know that they were the 8 seed and such, and in theory they were supposed to be the easiest one to play. I don't know that I agree with that. I think it's just the way we match up against teams like that. Nashville was on the top of my list of teams I didn't want to play. Pittsburgh was the next one, to be honest. I'd much rather play the Baby Bulls and Lou City than those 2 teams. So I know that these are good teams. I know that we got to be on top of things, but for me, I feel like we're a better matchup for these 2 teams, and I think we have a good chance. And not only that, but we made a huge deal about this whole curse and such.
Sure.
And the players knew it, and they talked about it on social media. There's a lot of pressure on this team, especially having gone out in the first round for the previous 2 years. So, we put pressure on them. It was maybe a little rough on them. Hopefully they can breathe easy. They can now say that they are the best USL FCC team we've ever had because they made it to the second round. So there you go.
Yeah, Nashville, I mean, look, you had every reason to be concerned about Nashville after what went down in all of the matchups this year. So I agree with you there, Bill. I will say this. I do enjoy watching some of the Western Conference teams because it's not something we get to see regularly. And I love the fact that every game is available to watch online. So Friday night when the playoffs kicked off at 10:30, man, that was cool. I was very glad that there was some playoff soccer on Friday night and got a chance to see Drogba play this year. So that was pretty neat. All right, it's about that time we begin to wrap things up. Again, a reminder to get subscribed to the show so you don't miss March to Match Day. Brian's going to do a pretty good job of previewing the Red Bulls coming up here this weekend. Let's see. We got a couple more comments coming in. This is from YouTube. Scott Wilson says, Drogba alone worries me if we face them in the final. Don't know enough about their squad, but he looked scary Friday night. You know why he looked scary, Scott? It's because he doesn't have any hair anymore. I'm not used to seeing a bald Drogba. So I appreciate all the Facebook comments and YouTube comments tonight. I know we had some glitches a little bit with the live stream with a little bit of a delay. We got some new technology we're still trying to work out the kinks on. But thanks for your patience for those of you watching the live feed. If you're listening to the audio podcast, well, you can disregard everything because you won't even notice it. So, again, thank you to our own Trisha Hauser for screening our calls tonight. Let's get to some final thoughts, shall we? I'll start with you, Boston. Final thoughts before we head out?
The first final thought, which has nothing to do with soccer, but you're a Notre Dame fan? Is this new, or is it just a hoodie you pulled out of your closet?
Wait, you didn't know this, Boston?
I don't think I did.
Yes, I am a Notre Dame fan. I have been pretty much all my life. And yes, I know I've been getting some flack for my attire tonight wearing the Notre Dame sweatshirt. But what happened to the Buckeyes this weekend? I'm just gonna leave that there for you.
Yeah, Subes.
Hush.
Making enemies right at the end of the show. Everybody's just shutting it off. No, we don't want to hear Subes' final thought now. No, but FCC prevails. You know, the streak is what, 3 games. You did 1, and this. If I'm Alan Koch, that's what I'm telling the team. 4 games. That's all you have to win. You've done 1. 3 more. 2 will win the East. 1 will win the whole thing. You know, I'm not a big fan. I've been very vocal about how much I dislike the USL playoff system, but we got to play in it. It's our last year playing in it, and might as well try to win the thing, win a second season.
Yeah, you know, he talked about it a little bit in his post-game comments about how it wasn't pretty, but they got the job done. You know, a win is a win. Survive and advance, you know. Maybe they just needed to get over that hump, that quote-unquote curse. They got over it, and now maybe now they're playing with house money a little bit. But good stuff, Boston. Appreciate you being on the show as always. You're the man.
Oh, always a pleasure, Subes.
Any PTO this week? Any time off?
Nope, trying to save up. We got a big MLS season ahead of us.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear. Final thoughts from the Wolf Man, Bill Wolf. Thank you again for everything over the weekend. I know you were busy having to come out to the show after working at the tournament, but appreciate you being with us over the weekend, and of course tonight.
Oh, I wouldn't miss it for the world. It was a great time all around, everything, you know, from the tournament to the show to the game, though there was some moments in the game where I think I aged a year or two. But, yeah, I'd say final thoughts. It was phenomenal to have another TIFO. We haven't had one in a while.
Beautiful
a big
TIFO.
One. Yeah, it was gorgeous. I want to thank personally every single person who was involved, and I know there was a lot. And I know that it was the biggest one we've ever done, so that's exciting. So we're learning to do bigger and better ones. I think the big issue we've got to work on now is we just somehow have to communicate to people, you know, what a TIFO is and how it works, because it seems like there's so much chaos on game day on getting that to happen. And you know, with 5 or whatever different supporters groups in the Bailey, and probably 2/3 of the Bailey aren't even in supporters groups, it's pretty hard to communicate. But we got there. It was a little bit crazy with people wanting to, you know, beat on the bottom of it like it was a, you know, elementary school parachute or something. But
yeah, especially after they were explicitly told not to punch the TIFO.
Yeah, you can't read it when it jiggles around like that, right? And we obviously want people to see all that hard work that people put in, but we'll get there. I mean, you know, we're learning, and certainly we have great ideas for the stadium when we get there. So we've already been talking to the front office about you know, making ourselves even more TIFO ready. So yeah, we're getting there. It's fun, and this is the best and the biggest one we've ever done. I don't know if it's the best, but it's the biggest one we've ever done. But it was creative and fun, and I loved it. So great job.
I'm going to go ahead and put it on record as saying it was the best.
Is that because I painted Patty's chest? I just want to put that out there. If you really liked Patty's chest, that's all my work.
Wait, you asked earlier what superhero he was. You didn't even know what you were painting?
No, I was just happy to be painting Patty's chest. I didn't ask any questions. Just
okay. I'm going to move on.
So we'll just put that on record. Yeah, Boston likes painting Patty's chest. That you can quote that on social media.
Wow. He didn't have thighs, so I missed the best part of him. But
oh my goodness. Look, I will say this: that TIFO was spectacular. I had no idea what it looked like. Didn't know what it was heading into the match, and being as far down in the Bailey as I was, hashtag front row. Thanks, Todd and Alex, for hanging out with me in the front row of the Bailey. You know, I didn't get a chance to see it till the photos afterwards, and then I've got my mom and my dad quizzing me. I don't know anything about the Justice League. I don't know anything. I didn't know that the Justice League building was modeled after Union Terminal. That's
oh my gosh, you're such an outsider. I thought you were from Cincinnati.
I didn't know. First of all, I'm not a comic guy. I don't know any of this stuff. Secondly, my mom and I beg anybody who has this information, can you tell me which players were featured in the TIFO? Because I get a text probably every hour from my mom with a different guest for a different player. So if you know the exact players, just email me, feedback@cincinnati-soccertalk.com, so that I could let my mom calm down so she can relax and finally take in that amazing tifo that was over the weekend.
She's on Facebook, so if anybody knows, just post her right there on Facebook.
Yeah, if you're in the chat watching us live, just let her know. Because I had a hard time seeing. There wasn't like the bet. We had some good photos of the tifo, but there was just some, either the angle wasn't right or it just because it was really tough to see some of the faces. But I will say this, that tifo was the best one we've had by far. So kudos to the supporters groups for putting that together. It looked amazing. And kudos to Boston for painting Patty's chest.
Yes. Got the recognition I deserve.
There you go. My final thought as we get out of here, we kind of mentioned it a few weeks ago that we're looking for folks to join the CST team. Head over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/jobs is where you can do that. We're looking for folks who want to write and contribute to Cincinnati Soccer Talk. So, again, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/jobs. It is with a sad note that we are saying goodbye to one of our CSTers. Our own Griffin has made the choice to step away and spend some more time and focus on his family. From all of us here at Cincinnati Soccer Talk, Griff, we cannot thank you enough for your tremendous support of the show as well as your contributions. Griffin did a great job with all of our graphics, made the trip down to Florida for the preseason match there at IMG. Griff will always have the fire alarm in Miami, my friend. And so we thank you for everything that you did for CST over the last few years, and we wish you well, and we hope you stay in touch, brother. That's going to do it for this episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Our thanks to Trisha Hauser, Bill Wolf, and Boston Brazel. I went back to the Brazel there, Boston. You like that? I'm Subs reminding you to watch your tackles, and we will see you all next week.